Black History Month began as a week of observation in 1925. It was founded by historian Carter G. Woodson, who saw that Black people were underrepresented in history books and wanted to correct that marginalization. It was originally created during the second week of February to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and abolitionist Frederick Douglass. In 1976, President Gerald Ford expanded the celebration to a month and urged Americans to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history.
But why is Black History Month still important? First, Black American history is still largely unknown and underappreciated. Secondly, Black American history is part of the fabric of the founding and development of American politics, economics, and culture. Finally, Black history teaches us that collective struggle leads to progress. While Black history must be incorporated fully into any study of American history, Black History Month is a chance to further spotlight the accomplishments, experiences, and critical role of Black Americans in our country's history.
Michelle S. Delasport is a Haitian-American daughter and the mayor of the Township of Union. She received her Bachelor's of Arts degree in Political Science from Rutgers University and subsequently received a master's degree in City and Regional Planning from the Edward J. Burstein School of Planning and Public Policy at Rutgers. Michelle is a small business owner of an urban planning consultancy firm and has over 20 years of professional experience in land use planning, redevelopment planning, and community economic development. She is a licensed professional planner and nationally certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. She also serves as chairperson of the New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association Development Planning Committee and is a member of the National American Planning Association Ethics Committee. Prior to being elected mayor, she served as a member of the Township of Union Planning Board, not only as an active member, but as vice chairperson. To date, she continues to serve as a planning board member, as well as the chairperson of the Township's Economic Development Advisory Committee and the ADA Committee. Michelle understands the benefits of planned and appropriately scaled economic and housing development. She is skilled at working with residents, stakeholders, and business owners and offering planning recommendations that are reflective of the community's vision. She is an active parishioner of her church and an advocate of community involvement. Fully committed to her civic duties, Michelle is proud of her hometown, prioritizes the promotion of the sound planning practices, offers her wealth of knowledge, experience, and skills to the township. Her intentions are to be strategic about development initiatives, responsive residents, and the business community, and thoughtful, proactive about addressing quality of life issues. I'm happy to introduce my aunt, Mayor Michelle Delasport.
Thank you so much for having me, Sister Laura, Ms. Becky, faculty, and students. I want to thank you for inviting me to your Black History Month assembly. And I do this if I did take a moment to acknowledge Serena Williams. She's persistent and a determined young lady, and apparently she's very good at securing a spot on my calendar. So great job, Cecilia. It's my honor to discuss my thoughts on Black History Month and to share some personal experiences with all of you today. The committee that put this assembly together emailed several questions to me that I plan to answer. But let me begin by speaking about Black History Month. Can everybody hear me okay? For many, it's a time to rejoice and reflect on our progress, to recognize the pain, the accomplishments, and to honor the challenges that so many African American men and women have faced. Speaking to those challenges, last year, 2020, marked the 150th anniversary of the 15th Amendment, which gave men the right to vote following the Civil War. It also marked the centennial of the 19th Amendment and the culmination of the women's suffrage movement. Black American history has been an ongoing struggle experienced by people of color that continues into the 21st century. That's why I believe that like this one being held today are more critical now than ever before. When I was visiting your website, I noticed that St. Cecilia Academy has a long history that dates back to the Civil War. As I looked through the timeline, I also noticed that in 1957, St. Cecilia Academy moved to Harding Road location. This year stands out because it was also the year that the Arkansas Nine and Dorothy County and Charlotte tried to enter all white schools in their respective hometowns. Everybody knows who the Arkansas Nine is, right? The 9 black students elected to attend the previously all white Little Rock Central High, but they were blocked by the then Arkansas governor who brought in the National Guard to preserve the peace until President Eisenhower had to intervene and pull them out following the Brown v. Board of Education decision. That's Arkansas 9. So a lot happened in 1957. And let's just think about that one. Just 64 years ago, black students, just like some of you, could not attend public schools with their white counterparts. That means that some of you have families that live through the conflicts of school segregation. And I mention this because Black History Month isn't just about incidents and events that occurred in the 1800s and the 1900s. Black history, our history, is alive and ever evolving. Someday, you will be invited to speak on what Black History Month means to you. And I suspect that you may bring up the year 2013, when the Black Lives Matter movement was founded, or 2020, when George Floyd's murder ignited a firestorm of protest and a call for action, not just in the United States, but throughout the entire world. Whatever Black History Month means to you or makes you feel, remember that this month recognizes Black America's significant contribution that has been ignored, dismissed, or diminished in textbooks and popular culture. So remember the background about this time. Black History Month was founded initially as Negro History Week in 1926 by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. In 1969, it was taken as a month of remembrance by Black student union organizers at Penn State University. But it wasn't officially recognized by the U.S. government until 1976, which was only 45 years ago. So that's my spiel on Black History Month. So I was asked to answer a few questions. And I hope I haven't used up too much of my time, but I felt that it was really important to share. So I'll try to move along quickly. Still with me? So who are some people in Black history that influence and inspire me? That was question number one. Growing up, I remember being fascinated by Harriet Tubman because she was the conductor of the Underground Railroad, and each journey and every person mattered. Muhammad Ali, because he was the greatest, just like he said he was, but honestly, he was true to his convictions. Toni Morrison, because she believed everyone had a story to tell. Oprah Winfrey, remember Oprah Winfrey, she's still here. Because women were so used to keeping secrets when she first came out, and then she made owning your shame suddenly feel modern and chic. Serena Williams, fun fact, I was a tennis bum in high school, played on the tennis team, kept my tennis racket everywhere I went with me. It was in the trunk of my car, everywhere. Played in college and the whole nine. So growing up, Serena Williams was like everything to me, even though she was a kid too. But she's simply the best. 23 Grand Slam titles, 6 U.S. Opens, 7 Wimbledon titles, 7 Australian Opens, 3 French Opens, 4 Olympic gold medals, 23 double titles, and a career Golden Slam. Serena has won enough awards for several lifetimes. So yeah, she's the bomb. As I grew older, I was most influenced by Malcolm X because he was the spark who sought to ignite equality by any means necessary. Maya Angelou, because she rose to greatness despite facing some of life's cruelest hardships. James Baldwin, because he embraced the responsibility to be a voice of his nation. And Mary McLeod Bethune, because the First Lady of the struggle left us an indelible legacy of love, hope, and dignity. So all of these people remain true to themselves, yet they seize the opportunity to venture beyond geographic locations and their self-imposed confines, and consequently they took the time to understand that the world is such a big place. They took the appropriate steps to help them realize that you can't judge life and others based on limited experiences. Sometimes you have to step out into a larger circle. Watch closely, pay attention, follow your intuition, and learn. Examine things under a larger lens so that you can gain a broader understanding and perspective on issues, make educated decisions, and then act accordingly. So what does that mean, right? It means pay attention. Don't be a follower, be a leader. If you're gonna follow your inner voice, your passion, the thing that drives you to act, to be the best part of yourself. Because I promise you, in being the best person that you can be, you will positively impact someone else. And that's what being a true leader, a shero, it's what being a Christian is all about. Question number 2. What is it like being a Black woman in a white male-dominated field? So, let me begin by stating that throughout my academic years, my parents emphasized the importance of education. And I have to explain. So I'm of Haitian descent. My parents were very well educated. They moved to Newark, New Jersey in search of a better life in the 1960s, immediately following the Newark riots. My older brother, who was barely 2 years old at the time, was with them. It was in the middle of the winter. Remember I said my parents were Haitian from Haiti, never experienced snow in their life, so that was a struggle. They did very well for themselves, and they contribute their success to God's blessing, strategic planning, the kindness of strangers, and to their education. So growing up, my parents were relentless in their message that being well educated prepares you to face any challenge, including being a Black woman in a white male-dominated field. So, looking back, I second that. In any professional situation where I have been challenged in any manner, I reflexively rely on facts. I have an ability to research, assess, and present relevant information in a precise, efficient, and articulate manner. It doesn't only resolve the matter, but it also instills others' confidence in me. So the message, ladies, and listen closely and remember this, whether you're a Black woman in a white male-dominated industry or a white woman in a Black male-dominated industry, being educated and prepared gives you the confidence and the courage to not only work, but excel in any field, even though males of any color may dominate it. Don't ever forget that. Question number 3. How did going to an all-girls Catholic school influence you? Great question. And I gotta tell you, I went to Mother Seton Regional High School, great school, and like all of you, I'm sure you have great days and you have horrible days, and you look back on high school, and it's very different now than what it was when you went through it. So, again, I went to Mother Seton Regional High School. It was a high school founded in 1963. It was staffed by the Sisters of Charity at Convent Station and lay faculty members at the time. It was a 2-story building located on a beautifully landscaped 27-acre campus, and the school had an enrollment of roughly 300 students, so sort of like yours. Your campus is beautiful, I saw it online. Mother Seton, again, was a regional high school, and meaning that people commuted from various counties throughout New Jersey. Nobody lived locally, we were all bused or driven to school, and when I attended, the racial composition wasn't very diverse, quite honestly. Primarily Caucasian, and the majority of the minorities came from urban centers. The class was composed of students with different socioeconomic backgrounds. They were ethnically diverse, very family dynamics. Some people had nuclear families, some people lived with their aunts, their grandmothers, cousins, uncles, whatever. And interestingly enough, although it was a Catholic school, we were all Christians, but not all Catholics. So Baptists, Protestants, all Christians. Also, since Mother Seton wasn't a neighborhood-based high school. There were a host of activities and sports and programs throughout the year. They kept us there late afternoons, weekends. We were basically at school all the time. So we spent a lot of time together, became very close. And did I mention I had like the coolest 3 best friends ever. And we actually do keep in touch to this day. That was many, many years ago. So we were all very, very different, but together we actually clicked really well. So needless to say, my all-girls school experience had a significant influence on me. It taught me how to interact with new people and multiple cultures. It helped me to understand different perspectives and to gain new insights. It trained me to multitask, to genuinely express my thoughts and to think outside of the box, and most importantly, not to be afraid to try new things. Because like I mentioned earlier, there was always a new program, and because people came from different backgrounds and different cultures, the school really did their best to make sure that they introduced programs and events that spoke to all the different ethnicities and cultures. So they did do a great job at that. And so having going to an all-girls Catholic school influenced me. It fostered leadership skills, it enabled me to articulate my thoughts openly, and it did strengthen my confidence. I thrived in an environment where female students were able to express themselves freely and frequently to their peers, to our coaches and our teachers, and in my opinion, honestly, during college compared to my counterparts, I felt that I was more prepared academically and socially. And so I share this with you. Value your time here, okay? Own it, it's yours, and trust me, if you don't appreciate it now, you will later in life. So enjoy your time. Question number 4. What is it like being a woman in a position of political power? Quite honestly, I've been fortunate. Being involved with politics was not my plan. So, interestingly enough, as you heard, I'm an urban planner. I own my own business. My major in college was political science, and I was planning to go to law school. I ended up going and doing my master's in urban planning because I took a lot of politics and urban studies classes, and that's how I ended up going into urban planning. Loved it, still love it to this day. And really decided to just kind of volunteer my time because I'm a consultant, so I work for a lot of communities. I run a 10-member firm, and I just decided to, again, volunteer my time in the township that I lived in. Remember I said, follow your passion, it impacts people. Yeah, well, that's what happened. I followed my passion, really wanted to redevelop and revitalize a major corridor in my area. And next thing you know, I was asked to join the planning board. I did that, and next thing you know, I was asked if I was interested in running for township committee, and here I am now as mayor. So, I say all that to say that God will place you on a path. You have to go through life lessons for a reason, and just be prepared, because irrespective of what your goals are, sometimes you will find yourself back on that path that God has planned for you. And I must say that I am blessed in many ways because I still get an opportunity to do what I went to school for, which is wonderful. And simultaneously, I get to be the mayor of a wonderful township, which I actually grew up in. So as a woman in politics, I haven't experienced any disrespect from my male counterparts while navigating my way through state, county, or local politics. I believe that certain skill sets are required in positions of political power, however. As a woman, it's imperative to have a high level of self-confidence and self-respect. Be informed and prepared and have sound communication skills. Be genuinely receptive to people and their issues, and be firm in your position. And most importantly, be authentic. Again, I've been blessed. I recognize God on a daily basis, and I have very close relationships with my local county commissioners, assembly members, senators, congressmen, my state senator, Cory Booker, and Senator Menendez, and my governor, Phil Murphy, as well as other mayors and
elected officials throughout the state of New Jersey, and I've also been very well received by elected officials in neighboring states like New York and other regions of the country. I'm often invited to speak at various forums and conferences, places like the United Nations, or the leagues of municipality to discuss my position on various policies and topics. Remember I mentioned, be prepared, stay informed, and just make sure that you're passionate about the things that you want to talk about, because it does show. So being a woman in a position of political power affords me the opportunity to highlight issues that otherwise may go unrecognized. I have an opportunity to encourage and adopt legislation, policies, and programs that really promotes the health, safety, and the general welfare of those who historically may not have a voice, like minorities, women, immigrants, special needs populations. I also have the authority to adopt policies that stimulate economic growth and bring about physical change and neighborhood revitalization in my community. Remember, that's what got me here, right? I was really just interested in revitalizing a major corridor in my community. And so now I get to do that on a larger platform, and sometimes not just in my own neighborhood, but on a regional level, because a senator may ask me to now go to the state house and speak about certain topics and certain programs. And so it's wonderful to be able to have those opportunities that otherwise I may not have had. Everything that I do publicly matters. It's another big thing. I'm a role model to so many young women and just people in general. And so I must tell you that it's not for the faint of heart. There are no days off. I am a public servant. I tell people I'm not a politician, not really interested in that. But I am a public servant, and I must take that position seriously because people will call upon me, and I must be prepared to answer the call anytime. And trust me, it takes me literally about 30 minutes to get in and out of any store that I go to locally, whether I like to run and stuff like that. So if I'm gonna run at a nearby track, yeah, I'm not coming home anytime soon. But again, it's what I signed up for. So when I don't feel like I'm inclined to answer that call anymore, then quite honestly, I should retire from the position. However, as a woman in a position of political power, it's a very good feeling to have access to the means and the resources to help others when called upon. Question number 5. What words of encouragement or inspiration do I have for you? Let's see. You're all fortunate to attend schools like St. Cecilia Academy that encourage and inspires young women to achieve excellence in academics, in your personal growth, and service to others, especially in a nurturing and a richly diverse community. So I guess what I would say is be inspired by the gospel values that you're taught to develop your full potential. It matters. I can say when I was in high school, elementary school, you go through the motions, right? And sometimes even in high school, you go through the motions because there's so many other things going on in your life, but it does click before you graduate high school. And so with this Christian philosophy in mind, I encourage each student to become an interested and appreciative contributing and responsible member of your community. I think your civic duty is very important, and I think really bringing like your Christian values into your civic duty and how you interact with people is extremely important. When I mentioned earlier, like part of being a woman in politics, you should be authentic, you should be confident and firm in your position. Part of that is bringing your faith with you. I realize that some people who are lacking in faith, it's hard for them to do that. And you'll find that when you're strong, you have that strong foundation, and that also means having a foundation in God. It helps you be just stronger than the next person who's lacking in that area. So I think St. Cecilia Academy provides Christian leadership opportunities and academic challenges that will prepare you for anything life places in your way. Focus on your gospel values. Again, you'll be prepared for contemporary Christian lifestyles that embraces your family life, higher education, professional development, global awareness, productive employment, and service to your community. So ladies, I ask that you continue to pray, to learn, and work to improve yourself along your journey and help each other out. There's a reason why studies show that all girls programs work, and it's because they foster trust, they nurture, and they develop girls' inner strengths. It's crucial to long-term success. They support individuality while building a sense of community among women. So we belong to a sisterhood of well-educated women who have and continue to change the world. From Dr. Nancy Grace Roman, first female executive at NASA and NASA's first chief astronomer, to Kirsten Gillibrand, U.S. House of Representative and U.S. Senator, from Sister Donna Markham, first woman president and CEO of Catholic Charities USA and the organization's over 100 history, to Abby Wambach, two-time Olympic gold medalist. And the list goes on and on and on and on. There's so many women, all of these outstanding women and many more have attended all girls programs and have excelled in their fields. Like you, they're learning from caring women, and they benefit from a unique and special education. And trust me, it is unique and special. I remind you to be a call, just be a call and a messenger of God, and lift your fellow sisters along your journey of life. Keep learning, as knowledge, only thing that no one can ever take away from you. Trust me on that. And again, always keep God in your heart and your mind. I mentioned earlier about the question as far as who influenced me, what Black history person influenced me, and I said that Miriam Cloud Woodin was one of those people. And in my opinion, perhaps her most enduring written work was her last will and testament. And so I'm going to leave you with a quote from that. So I leave you love, I leave you hope, I leave you the challenge of developing confidence in one another. I leave you a thirst for education. I leave you respect for the uses of power. I leave you faith. I leave you racial dignity. And I leave you a desire to live harmoniously with your fellow men. And I leave you, finally, a responsibility to our young people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are just so grateful that you would give your time and your wisdom to us today. Mayor Dulles, thank you so much. Let's one more round of applause.
Bye. Have a great day.
Dr. Christina Edmondson uses her array of academic, professional, and lived experiences in her commitment to bring people together to promote personal and team flourishing. Dr. Edmondson holds a doctorate in counseling psychology from Tennessee State University, a master's degree in family therapy from the University of Rochester, and a bachelor's degree in sociology from Hampton University. Dr. Edmondson has served in a number of roles, most recently as the Dean for Intercultural Student Development at Calvin University. She continues to serve as an instructor in higher education and partners with several universities to develop ethical and impactful leaders. As a certified cultural intelligence facilitator, public speaker, and mental health therapist, Christina is often contacted by churches to consult about leadership development, anti-racism, and mental health issues. Her writing has been published in a variety of outlets, including Essence.com, YourBlackWorld.com, and Gospel Today magazine. She is also one of the co-hosts of the Truth's Table podcast. Our student panel is made up of juniors and seniors, including Lauren Hancock, Sabrina Jacques, Tawanka Zumara, Bethany Mallory, Taraya Tibbs, and Danielle Tyson. Please join me in welcoming our student panelists and my mom, Dr. Christina Edmondson.
Thank you, Zoe, for that awesome introduction. So Zoe keeps me on my toes. I never know what she might say. So you stuck to the script today. And it's really a blessing for me to be with you today. Thank you so much for extending the invitation, giving me the opportunity to meet this wonderful group of senior and junior students at FCA, and offering an opportunity for me to facilitate a conversation where they will lead in response to the questions that the student body has submitted for them to process in front of you. I want to start by saying that is incredibly gracious of them. Incredibly gracious of them to extend their time and their experience to their fellow students. And it's important for us to have a posture of learning when someone does that for us, so that we don't experience people in a voyeuristic way, as if they owe us their story, but rather we respond to them with deep gratitude, and that their story causes us to reflect more deeply about our story. So I hope that when you leave, you'll learn something not only about your classmates and these concepts, but also learn something about yourself. What does it mean to be who you are? So here's our first question. Who in Black history inspires you and why? And each panelist will give this question a go.
So one person that inspired me is Gabby Douglas. When I was growing up, I always watched her on television, and just seeing a Black figure in the Olympics like winning was also inspiring to me, because I've seen like not a lot of Black women in the Olympics win a lot of medals as much as she did, so it inspired me.
I think Onesimus, he was an African American like slave during the 17th century or whatever, and he had helped prevent the smallpox outbreak in Boston, and so I think he inspires me because he went with his gut and he had the courage to do procedures that he had experienced.
One person that inspires me is Madam C.J. Walker, and she was the first female self-made millionaire, despite the hardships of being Black and being a woman. And she kind of started like the support of Black hair care.
Someone who's inspired me in Black History Month is Harriet Tubman, because I've always thought of her as like a strong and confident woman, and she always put other people's safety and freedom before her own, so I sort of want to be like her.
My inspiration is Maya Angelou, because she was able to find strength and power through her voice as a Black woman, and she left a legacy that would inspire other Black women for decades.
Someone in Black history that inspires me is Malcolm X, because he inspires me to speak out against things that aren't right and injustices in this world.
Thank you so much. The next question comes from some of your fellow classmates, and the question is, what is cultural appropriation, and can you give some examples? And before the students share their direct responses about that question, I'm going to share with you briefly what cultural appropriation is, just in case you don't remember that, okay? So when we are thinking about the concept of cultural appropriation, it comes to us around 1976 or so. And so it's fairly new in our vernacular, what we call our social science language. But I want you to think about what happens when a group of people come to a new land or a new place and kind of claim that place for themselves, like that act of colonization or imperialism. So that's what that looks like for one group of people coming to a land. But we can also do that with people's experiences. We can also come to a place or come to a person and take from them parts of their identity that they might cherish. So there's a big uproar in the United States right now about the names of different sports teams, particularly sports teams that have names that are associated with indigenous people. That's an example of cultural appropriation. When someone's culture or heritage is used as a costume, used as something that kind of can be put on and taken off or mocked, instead of deeply appreciated. And that's really the big distinction between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation, is humility. Cultural appropriation says I have a right to take a part of who you are and use it as a costume and maybe even mock it. Cultural appreciation says there's something about you that I value, so I want to learn it, understand it, and study it, and demonstrate the respect that's due to it. So I want to go back to the panel here. Tell us a little bit about what cultural appropriation is to you, and can you give some examples? And Danielle, you'll kick us off.
Okay, so I just want to give some examples of cultural appropriation. So, you know, like blackface, tans, when you get tans really dark. A good example is I've had some people like come up to me and be like, we get tans so we can look like you, or like they compare like my skin color to their skin color. Oh, I'm almost as dark as you. Like that's a good example. Hairstyles, cause like braids for us, my hair, and especially right now, like locks, it's seen as unkept or unprofessional. But then when white people do it, it's, oh, that looks nice. It's like a trend. Or like we all know Kim Kardashian, right? And like a couple years ago, she wore cornrows, and then they called them boxer braids, and it became like a new trend. But like black women have been wearing cornrows for centuries, and we are always unappreciated for our hairstyles and stuff. I think of cultural appropriation as like a trend that people find. So it's like y'all want to be us, but don't want to take part in like helping us and stuff like that. So that's what I think about cultural appropriation.
So yeah, Danielle gave some good examples, but I just wanted to add that why it's wrong is because it takes away from the original culture and it diminishes the meaning of like that certain aspect of the culture. So, and it usually happens when like a more dominant culture appropriates like a minority culture. So like when white people appropriate like black culture.
Awesome. Well, let's move to another question. Have you been a victim of racial stereotypes? And did your parents give you a talk on how to act around authority? And Sabrina will start us off.
So when I was younger, my mother and I, whenever we would go shopping, she would tell me not to touch anything and not to put my hands in my pockets and like just to like put my hands in my purse and stuff. And whenever I was younger, I didn't really like understand what she was trying to say. But as I got older, I understood it was because I'm black and like oftentimes like people, like black people, whenever they go into stores, they're stereotyped as like thugs or like they might steal and things like that. And so still to this day, like I'm very careful, like I've never shoplifted or anything like that because I don't want to make those stereotypes become like a real thing.
To add what she said, did your parents give you a talk about how to act around authority? Many of us have seen the movie The Hate You Give, and when the dad gave Star the talk about how to deal with the police, I think about that a lot because I got that talk when I was around 5, because that was the first time I had ever experienced like racism and stuff. And then like again with like what she said about like the store, like don't touch nothing, don't look at nothing. Like I'm pretty sure like if you ask almost any black person, like, and you say the phrase, don't touch nothing, don't look at nothing, don't ask for nothing because you're not getting nothing. It has to do with that. And yeah, I just think about that automatically.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, what exactly is a microaggression? What microaggressions have you experienced from your peers? And how can other students be allies for black students? And so I'll start by trying to briefly explain what microaggressions are. So that is another social science term, and it comes to us by way of Dr. Daryl Wing Su. He's an Asian American social scientist, and the way that Dr. Wing Su defines microaggressions is that they are kind of everyday indignities. They almost feel a bit implicit. That's a part of the anxiety-provoking part of microaggressions. Because if they were really blatant, you could say like, ha ha, see that was really racist or sexist, right? It's the subtlety of it, and it's also the cumulative impact. So think about a paper cut. One paper cut kind of bugs you, but imagine several paper cuts over and over again, and the level of irritation and pain that that causes. That's what microaggressions feel like to people who experience them. By the way, all people have stereotyped identities, which means that all people, if they are in positions of the minority, are likely to experience microaggressions, whether they're based on gender, or nationality, or region of the country, or maybe what field you might be interested in studying. Racial microaggressions happen to African American people and are rooted in long-standing stereotypes and negative assumptions that justify people feeling that it's okay to mistreat, subjugate, or ignore racial disparities that exist to today. Think about a Jenga game. Have you ever played Jenga before? Right? The first time one of those blocks gets removed, that first microaggression, you might be able to brush that off. Remember, the Jenga is still standing. The next one gets removed and you think, still standing strong. Maybe that wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe they didn't really mean what they said to me. But the more those Jenga blocks come out, what starts happening to that figure? It starts to sway. It starts to move. And you begin to feel like one more Jenga block being removed, and I'm gonna crash. One more rude comment about my hair, one more negative assumption about my background, one more stereotype statement, one more person attempting to mimic my accent, and I'm going to crash. And when that Jenga block falls, the last one comes out and that figure falls, well, people respond like something has crashed down. And then you get the stereotypes of, oh, why are you so defensive? Why are you so angry? Because you haven't seen all the blocks that have slowly been removed over time. So that's how I would describe microaggressions to you. And I bet you can think about some of your own identities. Think about the stereotypes that are attached to those and what it feels like when they are pulled away one at a time. So back to our wonderful panel. Danielle, you'll go first for us, talking about what exactly is a microaggression for you. And even more specifically, I want you all to focus on, have you experienced these things from your peers? And how can students be allies for Black students?
Okay, so microaggressions for me is basically like borderline racism, where it's like, you know it's racism, but you can get a little pass because it's just not there, you know? So what microaggressions have you experienced from your peers? Every time I usually like speak out, because I know in a couple classes we have like debates and like seminars, stuff like that, and everybody, like, if you're in my classes, you know that I speak out. So I know a lot in freshman year and sophomore year, a lot of my class were naming me as the angry Black girl, because every time I brought up something, it's, oh, she has to always bring up this, or, oh, why is she always mad about this? Like, that was forever ago, or it's not that big of a deal. So I think about that. I also think about misnaming people, misnaming, like, especially Black people, because I know freshman year, a lot of people would get me mixed up with Turia, and we look nothing alike. We look nothing alike. Or I don't know if you know she graduated, but Jayla, I would always get called her, and we look absolutely nothing alike. And it's kind of like we don't want to take the time to learn our names, because there's not that many of us here. It's it's pretty easy, you know? But yeah, think about that. Oh, how can other students be allies for Black students? Speak up. I know it's kind of scary. Maybe even like to speak out against your friends, but yeah, just speak up.
I think also for that second part of the question about how can you ally with your Black students, I think an important thing is to just not make excuses for your friends. And the thing about a microaggression is the racism is not like blatant. So there are some things that people just simply didn't know or didn't think would offend you. But ignorance is not an excuse when it comes to those things. So when a Black person person tells you that what happened, what was said, and how it affected them, don't tell them how to feel, and don't tell them it wasn't a big of a deal, that the person just simply didn't understand, because you should understand, and it's important that you start to learn.
I have an example of like some microaggressions I've experienced here. So like if we're on a class and we're having a debate or maybe like a seminar, or we could be talking to a teacher trying to like convince the teacher about something. If I start speaking, I'm told that I have like an aggressive tone, whereas if my classmates, like usually my white classmates, if they say the same thing as me, that no one tells them to calm down, but like they tell me to calm down because I have a serious tone, but I'm just trying to get my point across. And like this is a microaggression because this goes back to the stereotype being an angry black woman. So most of the time whenever things like this happen in class, I usually just like don't even give my opinion about it because I don't want to hear people telling me to calm down throughout the class. And how can students be allies for black students? Just really just call out your friends. Like I know that like it might cause like a argument or something, but like, just call out your friends, because if you keep letting your friends keep like acting the way they're acting, like they're just gonna get worse. And once we get out into the real world, like with other people that don't go to St. Cecilia, you just can be like, well, oh, I never knew this, and like stuff like that, because that's not a good excuse.
Some microaggressions that I've experienced, just like if I'm writing an essay, some teachers will tell me to cite some sources because they just didn't think that I wrote it myself, or